Okay, year 7, thanks for listening. This is Miss Turner again. In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about how to tell the time in French. So our objectives today are firstly to revise numbers in French, and we're going to learn how to tell the time. Once again, make sure you've got a pen or a pencil handy and you've got your French book, or if not, then a piece of paper or a notebook handy. And once again, be ready to pause the video to complete the activities. We're going to mark and correct our own work. So take as much time as you need, and then just make sure you're checking your answers as we go through so you can make the most out of this time. Okay, so throughout today's lesson, we're going to be working on answering the question that's on the screen right now. Quelle heure est-il? Quelle heure est-il? Have a think for a second about what you think that question means. I think it's fairly clear, hopefully, from the objectives we've just gone through. But the question we're going to be looking at answering today is, what time is it? Okay? Now, what are we going to need to know to answer this question? First of all, we're going to need to know numbers. Now, we all learned numbers right at the beginning of the year in September or in October, but perhaps we might have forgotten them or we might not be 100% confident with them. So before we move on, we need to make sure that we're revising those numbers and that we've got them written down again so we can easily refer back to them and we're not having to flick back like 40 pages. So, what I've done is I've given you the numbers 1 to 12 in French, and I have removed every other letter, okay? So I've given you one letter, then I've taken out a letter, then I've given you another letter, then I've taken out a letter. What I would like you to do is to complete the numbers with the correct French word and to write the number in full. So you're going to write like the digit 1, and then you're going to write the French word for 1, okay? Even if you've already got it written down, please write it down again because you're going to find it helpful throughout this lesson. We'll do the first one together so we know exactly what we're talking about. So number 1 is going to be un. So in my book, I'm going to write down 1 and then I'm going to write down un. If you have to look back in your book, if you're stuck on one of them, that's fine. Just make sure that we do get it written down. This is a little bit of a challenge as it's going to make you really think about how to spell those words. So pause the video, take as long as you need to answer, then we're going to go through exactly what those numbers are. Okay, très bien. So we've got un. We've got deux. Make sure you're correcting these as we go along if there's some you're not sure about. Trois, quatre, cinq, six, sept, huit, neuf, dix, onze, douze. Okay, so those are the most important numbers we're going to need to talk about the time in French. Now, the way that we do tell the time in French is it's fairly simple, and I'm going to show you at first on a clock. We're going to look at some digital clocks as well later on. So my question, what time is it, is quelle heure est-il? Which literally means, which hour is it? Okay, now looking at that clock below the question, we can see that it's 1 o'clock. So I'm going to start my answer with il est, meaning it is. And I'm going to say il est une heure. Il est une heure. So we've got it is, then we've got 1, and then we've got heure, meaning an hour or meaning o'clock in this situation. Now, the reason that normally in French, when we say 1, we say un with un. The reason here that we say une is because the noun heure is feminine. So we just add that e on the end of it for that. The rest of them don't change though. So il est une heure. Have a guess. If I wanted to say it's 2 o'clock, what am I going to say? I would say il est 2 heures. Il est 2 heures. It is 2 o'clock. All that changes every single time I do that is that number changes. So il est 3 heures. It's 3 o'clock. Il est 4 heures. It's 4 o'clock. If I wanted to say it was 12 o'clock, I would say il est 12 heures. Okay? Or I might say il est midi for that one. It's midday. Okay, so it's fairly simple saying what the time is in French. And what I want you to do is to write a full sentence saying what the correct time is. If you need to look back for the spelling of il est or the spelling of heure, please go back in the video a little bit. But write 3 sentences for me, please, in your book about how to say A, it is 11 o'clock, B, it is 9 o'clock, and C, it's 5 o'clock. Okay, lovely. So what you should have written down in front of you for A is il est 11 heures. Il est 11 heures. For B, you should have il est 9 heures. Il est 9 heures. And for C, we should have il est 5 heures. Il est 5 heures. Lovely. So I hope that that's simple enough. We just change that number and we use heure to mean o'clock. So, getting a little bit more complicated though. If we want to say it's half past, for example, it's 2:30, all I have to do is add et demi onto the end of the time. So we've already talked about the little word demi before when we've talked about demi-frère and demi-sœur. And all it means is half. So if I'm saying il est 2:30, I'm saying it's 2:30, but literally I'm saying it is 2:30. So all I do is I just say what time it is and then I add et demi on the end, meaning 2:30. So if we look at this, you don't need to write any of this down just yet. I'll tell you what you need to write down. 9:30 would be il est 9:30. 11:30, il est 11:30. 5:30, il est 5:30. And 3:30, il est 3:30. So it's fairly simple. We just keep the time that we talked about earlier, so il est 3 heures or whatever, and we add et demi onto the end. Okay, so looking at how to say quarter past, now all we do here is instead of saying et demi, meaning half past, we add un quart onto the end of the time. So un quart is just a quarter. So for example, il est 2:15 would be it is 2:15. Okay, so we'll have a go at some of those together as well, and hopefully you'll get a general idea of how to do that. So to say 10:15, I want to say literally it is 10:15. So I would say il est 10:15. To say 9:15, I would say il est 9:15. Now, having a guess, what do we think we would say for 6:15? Il est 6:15. So again, we're just adding un quart onto the end whenever we want to say quarter past. Il est 1:15. It's 1:15. Okay? Now, getting a little bit more specific, telling the time, if I wanted to say 5 past or 10 past or 20 past or 25 past, all I do is just take that number 5, 10, 20 or 25 and I just add it onto the end of the time. For example, il est 2:05, it is 2:05. I don't need an and there, that's just the way it is in French. And that would work no matter what I wanted to say. If I wanted to say it is 13 minutes past 2, I would say it is 2:13. So all I do is I just take that number and add it onto the end. It's only for half past and quarter past that I use that et. So if we look at this for an example, 3:05, il est 3:05. Il est 3:05. 6:10. Il est 6:10. Il est 6:10. 4:20. Il est 4:20. Il est 4:20. 9:25 would be il est 9:25. Il est 9:25. So just to recap that, if I wanted to say half past, I'd add et demi onto the end. If I want to say quarter past, I'm going to add un quart onto the end. And if I want to say anything else past the hour, I just add that number onto the end of my sentence. So we're going to put that into practice here, and you're going to write in your books in the margin A, B, C, D and E, and you're going to write a full sentence telling me what time that is in French. So there's an example on there for you. So if I wanted to say it's 9:10, I would say il est 9:10. That's my example. You're going to write 5 more sentences. You're going to pause this and let's press play when we're ready to go. Okay, très bien. So for A, 10:30 or 10:30, il est 10:30. B, 3:15, il est 3:15. 7:05, il est 7:05, so no et needed there. Il est 10:25. And il est 12:20, or if you wanted to say it's 20 past midday, il est 12:20. So well done if you managed to get most of those. If you didn't, maybe go back and watch it again. I know there is a little bit to get your head around, but once you've understood it, it is fairly logical. So that's what we need to do by saying that it is something past the hour. However, if we want to say quarter to the hour, that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, okay? So if I want to say, for example, it's 4:45, I need to say it is 5 o'clock minus the quarter. Okay, that sounds really, really strange for us in English, but once you've got your head around it, once you've memorized that phrase, it's really easy to remember in French. So it is 5 o'clock minus the quarter is going to be il est 5 heures moins le quart. Moins le quart, meaning minus the quarter. Okay, so we're going to practice this together, and you don't need to write this down unless you want to. We will be writing some of this down later. We're going to look at 9:45, and I'm going to look at that English literal translation before I go on to translating it into French, so I can get that minus the quarter into your head. So 9:45, remember 9:45 is actually 9:45. So my English literal translation is going to be, it is 10 o'clock minus the quarter. So you might want to see if you can guess what that's going to be in French before it pops up on the screen, or if not, just wait for it, just take it in. What I'm going to say there is, il est 10 heures moins le quart. Il est 10 heures moins le quart. Next, 6:45, and remember that's 6:45, so I'm going to say it is 7 o'clock minus the quarter, which is going to be, il est 7 heures moins le quart. Il est 7 heures moins le quart. So next we're going to need to say 11:45, which is 11:45. It is 12 o'clock minus the quarter. And actually, write this one down, pause it, write down it is 12 o'clock minus the quarter in French, and then we'll check your answer in a couple of seconds' time. Okay, so for that one you should have il est 12 heures moins le quart. Il est 12 heures moins le quart. Okay, so quite tricky to get your head around that one, but once you've got it, you've got it. Now, 5-2, 10-2, 22 and 25-2. In French it works exactly the same as 4:45. So if, for example, it's 10-5, I'm going to have to say it is 5 o'clock minus 10. If it was 20-5, I would say it's 5 o'clock minus 20. 25-5, it's 5 o'clock minus 25, etc., etc. So let's have a look at that. If it is 9:50, so that's 10-10, I'm going to translate that as it is 10 o'clock minus 10. So in French, I will translate that as il est 10 heures moins 10. Il est 10 heures moins 10. Second one. So we've got here 25-7. So what I'm going to need to say in French is it's 7 o'clock minus 25. It's 7 o'clock minus 25. So I'll say it's 7 o'clock, il est 7 heures minus moins 25-25. So it might be worth you revising those higher numbers if you're still a little bit unsure of those. Then 11:55, so that's 5-12. I'm going to need to say it is 12 o'clock minus 5. So pause the video, write this down, see if you can think of this before I tell you the answer, and then we'll check it in a second. Okay, so we want to say there, il est 12 heures moins 5. Il est 12 heures moins 5. So 12 o'clock minus 5. Okay, fantastic. So, I want us to do a bit of writing now, and I want you to write all of these ones down, please. I know we've talked through the previous ones, but we need to make sure we've got some of these written down in your books. So same as we did before, write the 5 times in full sentences, A, B, C, D, and E. The example is on there, 9:50, 10-10, il est 10 heures moins 10. So have a go at those. If you're unsure, go back to the bit in the video where we talked about exactly how it works with the example sentences, and just write down your answers from there. Okay, so for A, we've got 10:45. So my answer in French would be il est 11 heures moins le quart. Literally, it is 11 o'clock minus the quarter. B, and that's 5-4. Il est 4 heures moins 5. So 4 o'clock minus 5. Next, we've got 20-8. So I'm going to say il est 8 heures moins 20. Literally, it's 8 o'clock minus 20. Next one is 25-11. Il est 11 heures moins 25. So literally, it's 11 o'clock minus 25. And then E is 10 to 5, so it's going to be il est 5h moins 10. Il est 5h moins 10. Okay, so well done if you've managed to get most of those. Again, feel free to go back in the video and watch it again and do a little bit more practice of this, but just make sure what you've got written in your book is marked and it is correct. So when you come back to revising this, you've got something concrete in front of you that you know is correct. What I want us to do now is to put together both the quarter past and the half past and the 5 pasts and the 22s, and you're going to draw the clocks for me in your book with the correct time on them. So basically you're going to do your big hand and your little hand at the hour, and your big hand at the amount of minutes past or two. So the French sentences are underneath. You've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G and H, and you're just going to draw those clocks. You don't have to spend ages on them, they don't have to look nice. I just want to make sure that you understand the sentences, and we'll check those answers when you've pressed play on the video and you're ready to go through them. Okay, so let's have a little look at what our clocks should look like. And again, don't worry too much if they're not very neat, as long as you've got the hands in the right place and you've understood. So for A, il est 3h, your clock should look something like this. It's 3 o'clock. B, il est 5h30. It's going to look something like this. It's 5:30. For C, il est 12h15. It's 12:15, so your clock should look something like that. D, il est 8h, hopefully a nice easy one there, it's 8 o'clock. E, il est 2h20, it's 2:20. F, il est 11h moins 10, it is 10 to 11. G, il est 2h moins le quart, it's 1:45. And H, il est midi, it's midday. So hopefully you've got clocks in front of you that look a little bit like that, or if not, at least you've understood those sentences and what time they're trying to express. Okay, so I want us also to be able not only to tell the time, but to describe our timetable in French and describe what lessons we've got at different hours. So we're tying it into the last lesson where we learned about different subjects. So have a look at these sentences and have a think about what you think they mean. So first of all, I might say, j'ai les maths à 8h30. J'ai les maths à 8h30. Have a think in your head about what you think that means. I'm going to tell you in a few seconds. What about j'ai les séances à 11h moins le quart? J'ai les séances à 11h moins le quart. Third sentence, le lundi, j'ai le français à 9h10. Le lundi, j'ai le français à 9h10. So, the most important thing that I want you to tell me looking at these sentences that hopefully you've had a little bit of a think about is, how do I say at in French when I'm talking about the time? So if I want to say at a certain time, I'm going to say à 8h30. Now, what we talked about earlier, we talked about il est 8h. That means it is 8 o'clock. So I'm not necessarily going to say I have maths, it is 8 o'clock. That doesn't really make sense. I'm going to replace that il est with this little word here, à. And it is à with an accent on top, so remember that. So j'ai les maths à 8h30. I have maths at 8:30. Second sentence, I have science at 11:15. Literally 11 o'clock minus a quarter. Third sentence, le lundi, that's Monday, j'ai le français à 9h10. On Monday, I have French at 9:10. Okay, so we're going to use this language, use this little word à, plus what we've learned about the time, to describe different lessons. So there's four sentences on the board, split into two. And what I want us to do is to read through together, and then you're going to write down what you think the English translation is of all of these sentences, just so we know exactly how to translate the time, and we're sort of bringing in a little bit what we did last lesson. So first of all, you're going to write down the English, not the French. Le lundi, j'ai les maths à 8h30. J'aime les maths parce que c'est facile. Second little bit, j'ai la musique à 9h25. Je n'aime pas la musique parce que c'est nul. So what I want you to do is to press pause in a couple of seconds and just translate these sentences into English. And then when you press play, we'll go through the answer. You can give it a big tick if you've got it right or add in any bits that you might have missed out. Okay, so our first translation is on Monday, I have maths at 8:30. I like maths because it's easy. Second sentence, I have music at 9:25 or 9:25. I don't like music because it's rubbish. So what I want you to do is to look at these sentences here and look at how we might change those sentences. So it would be fairly easy for me to change the second sentence to say, j'ai l'anglais à 9h25. And just to change out the school subject and to change out the time to make that about my own timetable, what lessons I have at different times. So, using your timetable and your planner to help you if you need it, or if you want to just make it up, I don't mind. I don't know what lessons you've got or what time. You're going to pick one day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you're going to write about what time you have each lesson on that day. And for each lesson, you're going to say whether you like it and why. So just like in our example, this person's told us 2 lessons that they have on Monday, and then they've also given an opinion of that lesson and said why they like it and don't like it. So what we're doing is we're building on what we've talked about last week, talking about different school subjects, and we're adding in what time we have those subjects. So one day of the week, so you're going to write about 5 different lessons and what time they are. If you want in a bit of a challenge there, you can also maybe tell me what time break and lunchtime are and give your opinion of break and lunchtime. Key vocabulary is there underneath if you want to use it. The days of the week are over there on the right hand side if you weren't sure about them. Lundi being Monday, so going Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. I've put those in brackets because we usually don't have school on the weekend. So pause this for as long as it takes you to write a short paragraph about your timetable. We've got one more thing to cover after you've done that, so good luck, make sure you've got it written down, and then we'll move on. Okay, fabulous, Year 7, well done. Hopefully you've got something nice written about what subject you've got on each day at what time and your opinions of those. Now again, I've got another slide on here of revision and further practice. Obviously it's not ideal being in a classroom, but it is good to make sure that you are spending time relearning this vocabulary in your own time. So this is kind of your optional homework to make sure that you remember this and that when you come back to school, you're going to have this knowledge in your head. So I've got 2 QR codes on the screen again. Again, if you have a smartphone and access to the internet, you should just be able to scan it through your camera app. If not, you're just going to search on www.quizlet.com and then the title of the Quizlet set. And this is going to be a way for you to learn the vocabulary and to test yourself. So if you want to do the first one, that's just revising numbers. And the second one is revising different ways of telling the time. So how to say quarter past, half past, etc, etc. So I would recommend that you spend a little bit of time doing that because it's a really good way of just revising every so often and making sure it goes in. Okay, Year 7, I hope you've enjoyed that lesson. Feel free to watch any little bits again that you might want to refresh your memory on, and just make sure that the key vocabulary from this lesson is written down and that you are checking back at it. Thank you so much for listening. I will speak to you again next time.